The letter in my hand felt impossibly heavy. My wife had bet our marriage in a poker game. Not metaphorically, literally. A hastily scrawled IOU with our address, our bank details, and her signature. Our entire life was now collateral damage in her addiction. This wasn't the woman I married 5 years ago. Back then, poker was just a Friday night thing with friends. A couple of beers, some chips on the table, and harmless trash talk. She was good at it too, intuitive, strategic, and damn near impossible to read. I admired that competitive streak. It was sexy watching her outplay the others, collecting her winnings with that subtle half-smile. The occasional game turned into weekly casino trips. Just to sharpen my skills, she'd say with that same smile that now seemed less charming and more calculating. I didn't think much of it. Everyone needs a hobby, right? The first red flag appeared when our joint account started showing unexplained withdrawals. Small at first, $200 here, $300 there. When confronted, she'd brush it off. Want it back plus some. Don't worry. But I did worry, especially when her phone started ringing at odd hours. When I'd pick up, the caller would hang up. Then came the lies about where she was going. Working late, despite her car being spotted at the Riverboat Casino. Credit card statements delivered to a P.O. box I didn't know existed. The classic signs were all there. But like a fool, I thought we could work through it. The breaking point came 6 months ago. I discovered she'd taken a second mortgage on our house, a house we'd saved for years to buy. When I confronted her, instead of remorse, she was indignant. You don't understand. I'm this close to a big win that'll solve everything. Her eyes had that feverish gleam I'd come to recognize. The look of someone chasing losses down a bottomless pit. I didn't yell. I didn't break things. I simply laid out the facts. She had betrayed my trust, endangered our future, and lied repeatedly. I made it clear that she needed professional help and that I would support her recovery, but financial decisions would now be mine alone. She agreed tearfully, promising to change. I wanted to believe her. For a while, things improved. She attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings. We set up a budget. I thought we were healing. What I didn't know was that she had found underground games where my financial safeguards couldn't reach, where people didn't play with chips, but with properties, cars, and futures. And now this letter. The final insult. Our marriage, our home, our life together, all reduced to poker chips. I felt something harden inside me. Not anger, not even disappointment. Something colder, more resolved. As I stared at her handwriting on that damning piece of paper, I realized she had made her choice. Now it was time to make mine. I carefully folded the letter and placed it in my pocket. Then I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. First to my lawyer, then to my bank, and finally to a locksmith. I wasn't going to fold. I was about to show her what a real winning hand looked like. The weeks following my discovery were calculated chess moves on my part. While she thought I was oblivious, I was documenting everything. The morning after finding that letter, I walked into our kitchen with a composed demeanor. She was sitting there, dark circles under her eyes, clutching a coffee mug like a lifeline. She hadn't come home until 4 a.m. Rough night, I asked casually, pouring my own coffee. She mumbled something about work stress. Another lie to add to the growing collection. I knew exactly where she'd been, at an underground game in the warehouse district. My colleague had spotted her car there while picking up a late delivery. The web of lies was becoming laughably transparent. We need to talk about our finances, I said, sliding into the chair across from her. The mortgage payment bounced yesterday. I kept my voice even, watching her reaction carefully. First confusion, then panic, then a measured attempt at composure. That's impossible. I made that payment last week. Her eyes darted to the left, her tell when lying. The poker player couldn't hide her own tells from me anymore. The bank says otherwise. And interestingly, there was a withdrawal of exactly that amount 2 days ago. Any thoughts on where that money might have gone? I placed my phone on the table, showing the bank statement. Her face drained of color. I can explain, she started, but I raised my hand, cutting her off. Save it. This isn't the first time. Just the first time I'm calling you on it directly. I slid a folder across the table containing printouts of bank statements, casino visits, and loan documents I discovered. You have a problem. A serious one. And it's not just affecting you anymore. The facade cracked. She began crying, apologizing, promising it would never happen again. The same performance I'd seen after the second mortgage incident. This time, I wasn't buying the show. I've separated our finances, I informed her calmly. I've opened my own account. Your salary will go into yours. We'll split the bills proportionally. You'll need to show me receipts for all household expenses." Her tears stopped abruptly, replaced by indignation. "You don't trust me? After everything we've been through?" The audacity was almost impressive. "Trust is earned. You've been systematically destroying it for over a year now. Consider this the consequence." The next 3 months were a cold war in our home. She tried every manipulation tactic in the book: seduction, silent treatment, explosive anger, tearful reconciliation attempts. I remained unmoved, sticking to the new financial arrangement with unwavering resolve. Meanwhile, I was quietly consulting with a lawyer, documenting her gambling activities, and securing my assets. The situation escalated when I discovered credit cards I knew nothing about, 3 of them, all maxed out, all in both our names. She'd forged my signature. When confronted, she became hysterical, accusing me of controlling her, of not supporting her through a rough patch. I recorded that conversation on my phone. "Evidence. This isn't a rough patch," I told her as she hurled accusations. "This is addiction, and I won't let it drag me down with you." Her response chilled me to the bone. "You think you're so smart, so in control," she hissed, her face contorted with resentment. "You have no idea what I'm capable of when pushed into a corner." That night, I backed up all my documentation to a secure cloud account and called my lawyer again. I wasn't just protecting my finances anymore. I was preparing for war, a war she didn't yet realize I was already winning. While she was counting cards, I was counting evidence, and my hand was getting stronger by the day. The breaking point came unexpectedly on a Tuesday morning. I received an urgent call from my bank's fraud department while in a meeting. Stepping outside, I learned that someone had attempted to take out a $50,000 personal loan in my name. The application had been flagged because the signature didn't match their records. The bank representative asked if I'd authorized my wife to apply on my behalf. My blood ran cold. "Absolutely not," I replied, maintaining composure despite the rage building inside me. I immediately placed a freeze on my credit and headed home, canceling my remaining meetings for the day. This crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. When I walked through the door, she was frantically pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Seeing me, she abruptly ended her call, her expression shifting from panic to forced nonchalance. "You're home early," she said, voice unnaturally high. I placed my briefcase on the counter and looked directly into her eyes. "Want to explain why you tried to take out a loan in my name today?" The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Funny, the bank has your phone number on the application. They have footage of you in the branch." I was bluffing about the footage, but she didn't know that. Her facade crumbled instantly. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "I'm in trouble. Deep trouble." Between gasps, she confessed to owing $75,000 to people who don't take IOUs lightly. Apparently, her underground poker games had escalated to borrowing from loan sharks. "These people came by my work yesterday," she whispered. "They said they know where we live, where my parents live. I just needed enough to pay them off. Then I swear I'd stop." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I walked to our home office, retrieved a voice recorder from my desk drawer, and returned to the living room. Placing it on the coffee table, I hit record. "Repeat everything you just told me." "What? What?" "Because I need documentation of this confession. For my protection." Her eyes narrowed. "You're recording me? Like I'm some criminal?" "Forging my signature on a loan application is a crime. Identity theft. Fraud. So yes, exactly like a criminal." My voice remained steady, betraying none of the devastation I felt. What followed was a spectacular meltdown. She screamed, threw things, accused me of betrayal, the irony apparently lost on her. Throughout her tirade, I remained seated, recorder running, documenting every threat and admission. When she finally exhausted herself, I spoke. "Here's what happens now. You will give me the names and contact information of everyone you owe money to. You will sign a document my lawyer is drawing up, acknowledging your gambling addiction and financial fraud. Then you will check into a rehabilitation program, which I will pay for, one last act of generosity. And if I refuse," she challenged, chin raised defiantly, "then I file police reports for the fraud and identity theft. I file for divorce citing your gambling addiction and financial abuse. The evidence goes to your employer, explaining why their finance director keeps having intimidating visitors. Your choice. The look she gave me could have frozen hell. You wouldn't dare. I leaned forward, voice low and controlled. Test me and find out. I've been documenting everything for months. Every lie, every missing dollar, every forged document. You've spent our relationship playing games. But this isn't poker. There's no bluffing your way out. That night, she slept in the guest room. I changed all my passwords, called my parents warning them about potential visitors, and emailed my lawyer the recording. The war was now in the open. She'd shown her desperation, but I'd showed something more valuable, that I was always 3 steps ahead. As I lay awake, I realized we'd reached the point of no return. The woman sleeping down the hall was no longer my wife, but an opponent who'd bet against me and lost. All that remained was to play out the endgame I'd been carefully setting up. She thought she was cornered, but had no idea how meticulously I'd constructed the trap. Morning brought no respite. I awoke to the sound of hushed, urgent conversation downstairs. Checking the security app on my phone, I saw 2 men at our front door. Neither looked like they were selling religion or lawn care. One had tattoos crawling up his neck. The other wore an expensive suit that couldn't quite disguise his threatening demeanor. Loan sharks, coming to collect. I watched through the app as she spoke to them, her body language submissive, pleading. Money exchanged hands. Not nearly enough based on their expressions. They left with pointed fingers and what clearly looked like threats. I took screenshots, adding them to my growing file. When she came back upstairs, I was dressed for work, briefcase in hand. She startled seeing me in the hallway. Friends of yours? I asked calmly. Just some colleagues dropping off work documents. She lied reflexively, not even trying to make it believable anymore. Strange. Most colleagues don't make threatening gestures when delivering paperwork. I held up my phone, showing her I'd witnessed everything. Those are the people you owe money to, aren't they? She slumped against the wall. Just some of them. The others are worse. How much worse? There's a guy who works for a casino in Atlantic City. I owe him about $40,000. He's given me until the end of the month. I nodded, processing this information while recording our conversation on my phone. And his collection methods? He mentioned something about repossession of assets. Her voice trembled. He knows about your car, your watches, everything we own of value. That was it. The final confirmation that she'd not only put herself at risk, but had effectively painted a target on everything I'd worked for. I'd known things were bad. I hadn't realized they were catastrophic. Give me your phone, I said, extending my hand. What? No way. Either give me your phone willingly, or I walk out that door and file a police report about the death threats I just witnessed on our doorstep. Your choice. Reluctantly, she handed it over. I immediately opened her messages, finding conversations with bookies, loan sharks, and fellow gambling addicts. I forwarded everything to my email before returning her phone. I'm going to work. When I come back, I expect a complete list of everyone you owe money to, exactly how much, and when it's due. No more lies. No more hiding. This ends today. At work, I executed the next phase of my plan. First, I transferred my remaining assets to an account she couldn't access. Next, I consulted my lawyer, updating him on the escalating situation. By lunch, I had court orders in motion to protect myself financially and legally from her debts. By late afternoon, I'd arranged for a moving company to pack and store my essential belongings. The call came at 4:30 p.m. Her voice sounded strange, a mixture of panic and something else. Triumph? We need to talk when you get home, she said. I've figured out a solution to all our problems. Have you now? I kept my tone neutral. Yes. You don't need to worry about the debts anymore. I've taken care of everything. Ice formed in my veins. When a gambling addict says they've taken care of everything, it never means they've suddenly developed financial responsibility. I'll be home by 6, I replied, ending the call. Before leaving the office, I made one final call to a private investigator I'd hired weeks ago. I need you at my house tonight. Something's happening, and I need it documented. Already on it, boss, he replied. Your wife met with some interesting characters at the Golden Ace Casino 2 hours ago. Looked like she was making arrangements. Want the photos now or later? Send them immediately. The pictures arrived as I was walking to my car. There she was, sitting with 3 men I'd never seen before, signing papers. The final image showed her holding up what looked like a deed. Our house deed. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She hadn't just bet our marriage in a poker game. She'd bet our house. My house. the one asset I had foolishly left in both our names. As I drove home, my shock hardened into resolve. She thought she'd found her winning hand. She had no idea I'd been building a royal flush of my own, one that would leave her with nothing when I was done. The house felt different when I walked in. She was sitting at the dining table, a bottle of expensive champagne open beside her, 2 glasses poured. Her smile was triumphant, bordering on manic. On the table lay documents I immediately recognized: our house deed and what appeared to be poker tournament papers. "We need to celebrate," she announced, pushing a glass toward me. "All our problems are solved." I remained standing, briefcase still in hand. "Explain." Her eyes gleamed with excitement. "I entered a high-stakes tournament. Buy-in was steep, but I convinced them to accept our house deed as collateral." She spoke as if describing a brilliant business strategy rather than the final stage of self-destruction. "The pot is worth nearly $500,000, more than enough to clear all debts and start fresh." "And if you lose?" My voice remained level, betraying nothing of the calculated fury building inside me. She waved dismissively. "That won't happen. I've been practicing. I know these players, their tells, their strategies." Practically guaranteed money. The delusion was almost impressive. I placed my briefcase on the table, opened it, and removed a folder. "Before you continue with this fantasy, I think you should see what a real winning hand looks like." I laid out documents one by one. Court order freezing all joint assets. I slapped down the first paper. "Affidavit from your therapist confirming your gambling addiction diagnosis from 3 years ago." "Yes, the one you hid from me when we got married." Another document joined the pile. "Police report filed this afternoon regarding threats made against our property by your loan shark friends." A third paper. And my personal favorite, forensic accounting report proving you've embezzled from your company to fund your gambling. The color drained from her face. "You wouldn't." "I already have. Your boss received a copy about an hour ago. Curiously timed with that call from HR you missed while meeting your poker buddies." Her champagne glass crashed to the floor. "You're bluffing." But uncertainty crept into her voice. "I don't bluff. That's your game." I pulled out my phone, opened a banking app, and turned the screen toward her. "See that? That's our joint account. Notice anything?" Her eyes widened at the zero balance. "All legally transferred to accounts you can't touch. And this?" I handed her another document. "This is a restraining order preventing you from entering this property after today. The locks will be changed within the hour." "You can't do this," she shouted, desperation replacing her previous confidence. "The house is in both our names." "Check your paperwork again," I said calmly. "You signed the house over to your poker tournament as collateral. A tournament I've already reported to the Gaming Commission as illegal. They're probably raiding it as we speak." This was a calculated bluff, but she didn't need to know that. "That's not possible. You're lying." Her voice wavered. My phone rang. I answered on speaker. "Sir, this is Detective Harmon. We've shut down the illegal gaming operation as you reported. We'll need statements from both you and your wife regarding the coerced property transfer." I hadn't planned this call. It was my PI using his police contacts, but the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Her face contorted in shock and rage as I ended the call. "You set me up," she whispered. "No, you set yourself up. I just refuse to go down with you." I gathered my documents. "Your gambling buddies are being arrested. The tournament is canceled. Our house is in legal limbo. But since I've documented your fraud, I'll retain ownership when the dust settles. Meanwhile, you've lost your job, your credibility, and soon, your freedom." She lunged across the table, but I stepped back easily. Her coordination was off. She'd clearly been drinking before I arrived. "Where am I supposed to go?" she demanded, tears streaming down her face. "That sounds like a problem for someone who gambled everything and lost." I zipped my briefcase closed. "I suggest you call your parents. You have 1 hour before the police arrive to take your statement. After that, this property is off limits to you." As I turned to leave, she played her final card, the victim. "Please," she sobbed. "I'm sick. I need help. We can fix this together." I paused at the doorway, looking back one last time. "You had countless chances to get help. Instead, you chose to bet our marriage. Consider this me showing you my winning hand." The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. In the car, I finally allowed myself a moment to process what had just happened. The marriage was over. The trust was irreparably broken. But unlike her reckless gambles, my calculated strategy had ensured I walked away with something far more valuable than money, my dignity and my future, both still firmly intact. 6 months later, I sat in my new apartment overlooking the city, reflecting on how dramatically life can change when you finally decide to stop enabling someone else's destruction. The legal proceedings had been messy but conclusive. As predicted, I retained ownership of the house, which I promptly sold, using part of the proceeds to clear the legitimate debts she'd created in our joint names. The remainder funded my fresh start. She hadn't gone quietly. There were tearful phone calls from her parents' house, where she'd been forced to move. Promises of rehabilitation, therapy, complete transformation. When that didn't work, the threats began: legal action, false accusations, exposure of invented transgressions to mutual friends. When those tactics failed, she tried turning our social circle against me, painting herself as the abandoned spouse who just needed one more chance. I remained silent throughout her campaign, letting the evidence speak for itself. Our friends weren't fools. They'd witnessed her decline, seen the toll it took on me, noticed the unexplained absences and erratic behavior. Most chose to distance themselves from the drama entirely. The few who remained loyal to me respected my decision to make a clean break. Her last-ditch effort came 3 months after our separation, when she showed up at my office, causing a scene in the lobby. Security escorted her out, but not before she could broadcast her version of events to anyone within earshot. My colleagues, already aware of the situation through my transparent discussions with management, responded with support rather than judgment. The criminal charges for her fraud and embezzlement resulted in probation rather than jail time, a leniency I neither opposed nor supported. Her punishment was living with the consequences of her actions: bankruptcy, a destroyed credit rating, loss of professional credibility, and the humiliation of having to rebuild from nothing in her late 30s under her parents' roof. Meanwhile, I focused on reconstruction. Therapy helped me work through the betrayal and recognize the warning signs I'd ignored. I established new financial safeguards, rebuilt my savings, and gradually allowed myself to trust again. First friends, then eventually, the prospect of new relationships. The final chapter of our saga arrived unexpectedly in my email one ordinary Tuesday. A message from her, sent through her counselor as per the conditions of our legal agreement. No emotional manipulation, no desperate pleas, just a straightforward acknowledgement of the harm she'd caused and the steps she was taking toward recovery. She didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. It was simply accountability, long overdue. I read it once, then closed it without replying. Some debts can never be repaid. Some trust can never be restored. The time for words had long passed. That evening, I met friends for dinner at a new restaurant downtown. The conversation flowed easily, touching on work, future plans, an upcoming trip abroad. When someone asked if I had considered dating again, I smiled genuinely for what felt like the first time in years. "I'm not rushing," I replied, "but I'm open to the possibility." Later, walking home alone, I passed a casino. Through the glass doors, I could see the poker tables, players hunched over their cards, faces masked in concentration. For a moment, I felt the pull of what might have been the life I nearly lost to someone else's addiction. I kept walking, the sound of chips and cards fading behind me. My phone buzzed with a notification. The final transfer from the house sale had cleared. The last financial tie severed. The game truly over. Some people go all in on a bluff, betting everything on the slim hope that no one will call them on their deception. I had called her bluff, showing a hand meticulously built on truth, evidence, and self-preservation. She had bet our marriage in a reckless game and lost everything. I had bet on myself and walked away not just financially solvent, but emotionally richer for having finally recognized my own worth. The night air felt clean and possibilities stretched before me, unlimited by someone else's demons. I had survived being collateral damage in her addiction. More than survived, emerged stronger, wiser, and ultimately free. Some would call it cold or calculating. I called it the most important lesson I'd ever learned. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And never bet on someone who's willing to gamble away what should be priceless.
Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.